मानुषी के मित्रों को मेरा नमस्कार. Friends, today I'm going to introduce you to Ankur Sharma, one of the foremost legal eagles of J&K state. He is what I would call an intellectual warrior par excellence. Among those who keeps the J&K state government on its toes all the time, with his exposes of Sarkari misdeeds and scams, of which there are plentiful in the state of J&K. He has filed a string of historic PILs challenging the many lawless acts of National Conference, PDP, and Congress regimes. But no matter which regime, Ankur is there as a watchdog on behalf of citizens, and he's also a very effective mobilizer of civil society. So here is a person who combines legal acumen with public spiritedness, as well as determination to change the politics of J&K, which indeed does need serious overhaul. Ankurji, welcome. I forgot to mention, you're also the founder of Incursions Jammu, जिसमें मैं भी शामिल रही हूँ. So Ankurji, today we will confine this conversation to your recent PIL challenging the state government's control over Vaishno Devi shrine, the very important shrine which it attracts lakhs of pilgrims from all over India. So what is it that made you do it? What's the background? Once you explain why you felt impelled to do so, then I'll ask you some of the questions and doubts I have.
I think I should start with a clarification. This is not a public interest litigation. It is a writ petition that has been filed by a religious denomination called Baridars. Bari in the literal sense means turn. So turn holders known as Baridars, which are 4 subcastes, Hindu subcastes, 3 Rajput and 1 Brahmin. So the state control could have been challenged only by the Baridars because Article 26 of the Constitution recognizes only denominational rights. I mean, only a religious denomination which has established a shrine can claim it back from the government. So this is a writ petition. This has been filed on behalf of Baridars, who are the local residents of Katra town and the village adjoining villages. So on their behalf, as in the capacity of an advocate, I have challenged the constitutional validity of the act, the Jammu and Kashmir Shri Mata Vaishno Devi Shrine Act 1988, through which the state took complete control, the management, administration and governance of Mata Vaishno Devi Shrine and its endowments and other properties, way back in 1986 with an ordinance and in 1988 with a law. Now the constitution and the law evolved, Honorable Supreme Court in this case says that yes, the state can take over control of Hindu religious institutions and also religious institutions belonging to different faiths, be it Muslims or Sikhs or Christians, for a very limited time period. But now more than 35 years have elapsed and the state, continues to control, administer and manage this shrine. In fact, I should say mismanage, fraught with corruption and other misdeeds that we'll probably discuss in the course of this discussion. So the fundamental rights, Article 26, fundamental rights, violation of Article 26, Article 25A, Article 31, capital A, subarticle B, of this religious denomination called as Baridars, it forced us to file this writ petition in the High Court. And in principle, like you said in the beginning also during our informal conversation, that the state control of Hindu temples, we are totally against. Even ideologically, constitutionally, legally also, it is bad. And there is one most important thing that is to be looked into is that under Article 25, the state, the government is empowered to take over the control, management, administration and governance of any religious institution belonging to any faith. But in the last 70 years of independence now, the state in India has taken over the management and control of only Hindu religious institutions. So it is also a violation of Article 14 as well. I mean, you're discriminating amongst religious denominations and religions also. And when the state is a secular entity, it should not take over the religious institutions belonging to any.
No doubt. And especially in a state like J&K, with its Muslim majority, where, in your own words, it was as good as having an Islamic state on the soil of democratic India. In such a state, for the government to own or control Hindu religious institutions is truly doubly outrageous.
It is preposterous. It is double jeopardy. You have a Muslim majority state, like you said, in a secular territory of India. I mean, we used to say that this is an Islamic non-secular state within the secular territory of India because of Article 370 and 35A. Constitutionally, it, planted a system within a system under which a new Pakistan was, planted, which means that a non-secular Islamic republic was actually in function. So now the de jure Islamic state has been dismantled. The de facto Islamic state is still in existence because you have the bureaucracy, the same bureaucracy in existence. You have same preferences. You have same policy preferences. You have individuals planted in the system who have a particular set of ideology, and they work on the principles of international jihad. They take, the modus operandi is same as that of the Muslim Brotherhood or the Wahhabi Saudi Arabia, like they did interventions in democratic societies. So that being the case, if Hindus are a minority in the state of J&K, and despite a Supreme Court judgment, they're not being given minority status or minority benefits. And in that eventuality, if the state takes over a religious institution belonging to Hindus for more than 35, 36 years now, I think this is preposterous. And it has its own, shortcomings. You have mismanagement at a level that we cannot imagine. You have squandering of Hindu shrine funds for non-Hindu purposes in a way we can't even imagine.
Yes.
There are a lot of instances of mismanagement by the board, and there is a lot of government.
Illustrate some. I think those should be illustrated right away, including their holding iftar parties with the funds generated by Shrine Board.
Absolutely. It was also covered by the national media as well. And the chief executive officer of the Shrine Board is on record to say that, yes, when Muslims demanded that we should be, we should conduct iftar and sahri parties for us, even if we are quarantined out of Hindu shrine funds, and they did it. I mean, the CEO of the Shrine Board is on record to say that. Now, apart from that, they have employed non-Muslims, especially, non-Hindus, especially Muslims, at various administrative posts within the board. Then the board has also established a hospital, a tertiary care hospital called as Narayana Hospital, Katra, in which the local Hindu doctors, and I spoke to many of them. In fact, when the notices were issued in this case and it was widely reported in media, so many doctors working in Narayana Hospital called me up and said that, there are several instances where local Hindu Dogra doctors have been humiliated and discouraged to work here. They have been shunted out on one or other pretext, and Muslim doctors from Kashmir are being given employment in this hospital. So similar is the case with the university also.
In Delhi, at least, such news didn't reach us. But trust J&K state government to do the most outrageous things anywhere in the world. So what else? Can you give a few more instances? Has the money from the shrine been going to the Vaishno Devi, Mata Vaishno Devi University? Not even that? What, are they transferring funds from? Have they been doing that?
They are transferring funds to the university, but then the university is also employing non-Hindus, which is purely beyond the mandate even of the Shrine Board Act. I mean, out of Hindu shrine funds, you have to promote the cause of Hindus, the Sanatan. You don't see even Dogri being promoted, the local language. There's no funding as far as the promotion of Dogri is concerned. Then you have a systematic manner in which the Hindus, especially, like I cited, gave an example about the doctors, they are being discouraged to work there, and Muslims are being adjusted everywhere, be it the board, be it the university, be it the hospital. And a very important thing that was reported widely in newspapers also some months back, जो चढ़ावा चढ़ता है through the gold and other ornaments. I mean, उसमें भी बहुत चोरी चकारी की न्यूज आई थी. उसमें जो it is measured in carats. So if suppose you have a 22 carat gold as an offering, किसी ने अगर चढ़ाया as a donation, so उसमें बहुत ये करते हैं कि 18 कैरेट का था 16. So there's a lot of theft as far as gold is also concerned. There have been allegations against the board, and the board never comes clean on these things. I mean, it should come up with audit reports. किसी constitutional agency ने इनकी audit की होनी चाहिए. The most important part of the audit is they employ their own chartered accountants. So they employ chartered accountants who audit them. I mean, there's a conflict of interest as well.
Has TAG ever audited their funds or the utilization? Has control?
The Comptroller and Auditor General of India has never audited their funds. Their funds are audited by private CAs, private chartered accountants who are hired by the board itself. So there's a conflict of interest, and they have to cover up so many things. So I was speaking to a doctor working at Narayana. He says that the hospital is a finest quality hospital. It always operates at its full capacity. वहाँ पे beds नहीं मिलते हैं लोगों को. It's very difficult. It's a tertiary care hospital. लेकिन हमेशा they will show it in losses. A full capacity पे चलता है हमेशा. You won't find, और bills इतने high ये issue करते हैं.
Oh, so it's not a charitable hospital.
It's not a charitable hospital. There is no charity for Hindus. Everybody comes. Anybody comes, and there's
because
no
the hospitals in Kashmir Valley are for example, the premier medical institute in Kashmir, that's charitable. I mean, that's run by state funds. I don't think people pay for it. So why should this hospital, which is getting money from the shrine funds, be not offering free service or subsidized service to people?
Absolutely. I mean, I can cite you two recent instances where an asymptomatic COVID positive patient was admitted by Narayana Hospital. Kisi ki sifarish pe, otherwise you don't get a bed. It runs at its full capacity. Still they show it is being run in losses. 15 दिन के बाद for an asymptomatic patient, जो bill उन्होंने उसको hand over किया, that was anything between 4.5 to 5 lakhs.
Oh my God.
और दूसरा, a BPL Hindu family, the cost of operation which the hospital told them was around 10 to 12 lakhs. So they approached us. I mean, I'm the chairman of Ekjut organization also. So a lot of people approach us when they are in difficulty of this kind. So मैंने पता वता किया, तो they could offer only a discount of 40,000, 50,000 out of 10, 12 lakhs to a BPL Hindu. That too, after taking it up with the CEO of the shrine board. So that's the state of affairs. I mean, they're not doing anything for Hindus. There's no subsidy. There's no reservation as far as the university is concerned for the local Hindus. या फिर in hospitals, there's no subsidy. They charge at commercial rates, and doctors are being told to compromise on quality so that the profit margins can be increased. And I know of many doctors, I will not name them because that can probably jeopardize their services there. They were afraid, who were actually ousted by the hospital for not compromising on the quality, because that affects their profit margins. So I have testimonies of so many doctors who are working there, so many doctors who were forced to quit, and so many doctors who were brought from Kashmir Valley, Muslims. The hospital.
Now, by contrast, Islamia University that Mufti Muhammad Sayyid set up in the valley, there I don't think any Hindu gets employment there. Am I right? Can
Absolutely.
you think of even one lecturer? In fact, even in the Kashmir University, I don't think there are any Hindus, even by way of token appointments. So here they set up a university in the name of Mata Vaishno Devi, which is also not subsidized by the government, state government, in the way that the Rajouri University, the Islamia University, etc., are fully subsidized. They get much larger funds from the state government, whereas Vaishno Devi University gets a token grant, I think about 50 crores, as opposed to how many hundreds of crores that Islamia University or Baba, what is it? Baba Rajouri?
Baba
Gulam,
Gulam Shah.
Gulam Shah University. So there's discrimination there, and then they steal these funds also, shrine funds also.
They steal these shrine funds also, absolutely. And total intransparency. There's no transparency as far as management is concerned. The board never comes up with its reports ki kahan inhone paisa kharch kiya. And there are many private trusts jinko the board donates out of shrine funds without even telling the community that we are donating to these funds. Many private trusts. So I think these things will also come. We have also prayed in this petition for conducting an external audit, an independent audit, so that all these things should come up.
So you mean anybody sets up a private trust, any politician or their flunkies, or a bureaucrat and his flunkies, and we know which denomination they would come from, not likely to be Hindu, and then they give away funds from shrine board money to these private trusts.
Absolutely, as donations.
Without accountability.
Without accountability, and they never disclose it. I mean, we filed application under RTI, we could obtain information in which we have seen many private trusts getting these funds as donations from the shrine fund. So they would not give shrine funds to a person who is a BPL category, below poverty line category individual, and requires 10-12 lakhs for a surgery at Narayana Hospital. I mean, the situation is pathetic, and it is only the tip of the iceberg. Lot of money that the shrine generates gets into the banking system also. And then there are so many instances there in J&K where the Islamists and jihadists have been given loans, unsecured loans, and then they turn NPAs, and then the bank also suffer losses, and probably some losses are also suffered by the shrine board also. Because
it's well known that J&K Bank in particular acted as an ATM for all the jihadi groups. So,
absolutely.
You know, you could just walk in and take whatever amount you wanted without even formal papers being signed.
Without even formal papers being signed. Absolutely. And people have secured unsecured loans. I mean, without mortgaging anything. They've secured loans in the name of their peons, clerks, in crores. So, I mean, it was a conduit even for Hawala transactions also. There's so many allegations leveled against the...
No, but you know, that reminds me, no matter how disturbed the conditions during these stone pelting phases in Kashmir Valley's history, J&K Bank ATMs never shut down. And now I can connect the dots. No matter, the university said shut down, the government offices shut down, colleges, schools, bazaars shut down, but J&K Bank never shut down, and certainly not its ATMs. And so that in itself gives you an idea why this was happening.
Absolutely, and it is a state instrumentality, J&K Bank, and it always acted like a jihadi state instrumentality because the state was of the jihadists. I mean, they had intruded these democratic institutions. They had come in. The government of India will present them, these people, be it whatever the mainstream political party, as a mainstream political party interested in democracy, least knowing that they are the people who purge democracy by entering democratic institutions.
Now, what is the total amount of chadhawa that comes every year? I mean, just a rough figure for the last 5 years, for example. Is that disclosed or not?
That is not disclosed in a manner it should be disclosed. It is obviously, it is in hundreds and hundreds of crores. The jewels that are donated, I mean, their value, if you take, it is in hundreds and hundreds of crores. Money, I mean, lakhs of people visit every month. So we have also sought these details in the petition, and probably once the government comes up with a reply to this writ petition, I think we'll be able to have a more meaningful discussion as far as this aspect is concerned.
Okay.
So let us...
Now, what I'd like you to... Now the controversial part of this whole issue. Now, I remember very well when Jagmohan Ji, as the governor of J&K, took over. He had a role in the taking over of the Mata Vaishno Devi shrine, right? Because it was alleged to be very poorly run. There were no facilities for yatris, etc., etc. And the kind of roads he built, the kind of shelters he built en route, and places for stay made him the darling of Hindu yatris. I remember that even my own mother comparing how bad things used to be in pre-Jagmohan days to when he took over and provided facilities. So at that time, unlike in the South, where there's never been this kind of endorsement for state takeover, the great temples of the South have always battled in some way or the other. But there was a visible jubilation when Jagmohan Ji took this initiative. Can you describe that phase and what was Jagmohan Ji's role? Because he, by no stretch of imagination, can be called anti-Hindu.
Absolutely. It all happened in 1986. I think we're talking about the era in 1986 when Jagmohan Ji, through an ordinance, took over the control of Sri Mata Vaishno Devi Ji shrine. And after 2 years in 1988, the legislature passed an act and took control of the shrine in that manner. Of course, the state is empowered to take control when there is mismanagement, maladministration and corruption. So there might be instances then, 36 years back or 35 years back, of maladministration, corruption, and lack of proper arrangements, as they say. But the Constitution and the Supreme Court also says that the state has to undo or correct these vices and evils. And after that, it has to return these religious institutions to the community, because the Hindu community as a whole cannot be indicted for all the kind of maladministration or corruption. Or people who now claim to take over the management, control and administration of the shrine board, they cannot be faulted for the faults of their predecessors. The fundamental question is, should a Hindu religious institution be governed by the state or the Hindus? The Constitution has an answer to that. The Supreme Court has an answer.
No, and there is a moral argument, there's a dharmic argument, there's a constitutional argument, there's a legal argument, and by all means, the corruption of the shrine board, the Sarkari shrine board, has far exceeded the corruption of the previous managers, because at that time, even the offerings were of much smaller order. So the scale of corruption and the recipients and the beneficiaries of that corruption have all been mainly Muslims. So that in itself casts another kind of shadow on the present state of governance. So I fully agree with you regarding the principle of it, the moral, constitutional, legal principles involved in it. So we are on the same page. However, in your petition, you mention that the baridars, meaning the kar sevaks or sevadars who take turns to service the shrine, it's a 35,000 strong community as per your petition. And you believe that since they constitute a denominational group, then they are the ones who should be handed over control of the shrine. Now, do you realize how impractical that is? 35,000 stakeholders. Between them, to khoon kharaba ho jayega for the control of it. Secondly, the temples in the south have had, the big dharmsthans in particular, have had well-established tradition of samajik seva. For example, education, arts, music, Ayurveda service. I mean, a whole lot of, including environmental improvements in that area. I'm familiar with several leading shrines where this work is taken very seriously. They've set up a whole array of educational institutions, especially those, including those that are not controlled by the government, that still have some kind of autonomy. So they have had that system. Whereas Vaishno Devi shrine, pre-takeover, didn't have any such system. It was like personal offerings to the priests or personal income for the priests. And now that you have 35,000 of them, uh, and if all the Chadhawa is to go to these families and put to no other use, I'm not sure people are going to be very delighted by the changeover that you're demanding.
I think we are talking about the mechanism through which the control, management, and administration of the shrine will be handed over to the Hindus. As far as Baridars are concerned, I think their role will be limited only to the performance of rites and rituals which are traditional in nature and which are very sacrosanct as far as this shrine is concerned. We are studying other models also, the models that you just discussed about of the South Indian temples, and we're working on a plan. And I think within a month's time, we'll be able to have a draft as to how this management and control should be handed back to the Hindus. As far as these 35,000 Baridars are concerned, I think they'll have a role. They'll have a role as is prescribed under the constitution. But yes, we'll have a more representative body in place, probably an administrative body, an advisory council of people, of Hindus who have an impeccable track record of working for the Sanatan, for the Hindu community. I think we can also have something copied from the Ayodhya Mandir Trust also.
No, but Ayodhya is purely Sarkari. I'm sorry to say so.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
Ayodhya is all government nominees, and it is in effect no different from what prevails in Tamil Nadu. I'm not very happy. I don't think it's just me, but the Hindu community at large is not very happy at the near total Sarkarikaran of that board. So I don't think that should be used as a role model. Now, secondly, whenever we've talked about these issues, whether in the South or even with you, most Hindus promptly come up with SGPC as the role model. They say, just as Gurdwaras are controlled by the Prabandhak Committee, the Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee, we can do something similar. Now, I've always pointed out, and I think we've had informal conversations on this, that SGPC has been actually the bane of Gurdwaras because the kind of politics it brought in. The moment you bring in electoral politics into any dharmic sthan, or even in universities, we know how universities are destroyed because of electoral politics, students' union, teachers' union, employees' unions, and the university is torn asunder by these political forces because wherever there's electoral politics, party politics jumps in. So it's not just students' union or student association, it's either run by Congress or BJP or Commies or DMK or whichever party. So in Punjab also, the politics of Punjab and the takeover of Gurdwaras by Khalistanis is in large part due to this electoral politics and the fact that for decades, the conflict between Congress party and Akali Dal over the control of temples is what gave birth to a Bhindranwala. Congress party propped up Bhindranwala in order to cut at the roots of the moderates among Akalis. And that's how Punjab witnessed its bloody decades. Now, surely that electoral model ought not to be tried. We have to find better ways to ensure transparency, to ensure that vested interests don't take over, than majority vote. Because usme to, whether it's desh ki politics or it's college union politics, trade union politics, wherever there's electoral democracy, so-called democracy or electoral politics, we've seen that institution being torn asunder by political parties and their battles for takeover. So I hope you will be vigilant against that.
No, absolutely. I think there is a consensus. I mean, even in our informal talks also, and all those who are devoting their times in finding out solution as to how this transition will happen, there's a consensus that elections will have no place in the new model. There's a consensus that bureaucrats, retired bureaucrats, they will have no place in the new model. No place, absolutely no place. I mean,
Good.
we don't want status quoists, people who are trained to be status quoists
and control freaks. They're trained to be control freaks. They're trained to put down people, mistrust people, and take over. I mean, you introduce two bureaucrats in a big body containing 2 lakh stakeholders, and like AIDS virus, they will just destroy the health of the best of institutions. So no politicians.
Absolutely no politicians, no retired
bureaucrats.
Nobody connected
Judges?
to the government. Absolutely no. They also form part of the government.
Good.
I don't think that. I mean, you have 3 organs of the government: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Nobody belonging to any of the part of the government should form part of this new model. So I think we have delineated. Broad guidelines. We have decided कि ये चीजें नहीं होनी चाहिए at least. And we're working on a model कि किस तरीके से workable model can be presented before the court also. So that court should also not have a problem in declaring that yes, this is how this should be done. Because in the Padmanabha Swami temple case, they proposed an administrative committee and advisory committee consisting of so many bureaucrats and probably retired judges also. So I think that should not, guide us.
There's another thing that today, in this day and age of technology, just as crime detection has become so easy, because of CCTV cameras and mobile phones, everything is now traceable.
Digital footprint.
So if you have, for example, the opening of the Hundi CCTV cameras, recording it all, then clear guidelines on how the money can be spent. Secondly, put these statements out on the internet. This month, how much chadhawa? Where is it going? And if, for example, it can only go to educational institutions for Hindus or run by Hindus, or promoting dharmic work among Hindus, or healthcare among the poorest of the poor among Hindus, then I see no reason why, no matter who you put, leaving out bureaucrats and retired judges and all the rest, then it's easy to keep track. If everything is out in the public domain on a regular, weekly or monthly basis, if you know the total income, and you know also where the money is going or is allowed to go, then there is much less chance of ghaplabazi.
Absolutely. The use of technology, technology is an answer to corruption. And technology also brings in transparency. So all your suggestions are very valid suggestions. And I think we'll incorporate all these suggestions in the constitution draft through which the entire affairs of this shrine will be run. Of course, after the court declares,
what is the response of the judiciary? Has the judiciary responded to it with a measure of caution, or do they see merit in it? How do you judge?
Of course, the High Court will never issue notice in a case where it doesn't find a merit. I think these temple controls, these cases, the Supreme Court also came out with so many judgments in the recent past, the Padmanabha Swami temple case, then the Nataraj case. The law is very crystal clear. Any religious denomination for a denominational temple which it has established can claim its control. So I think the court is very positive, judiciary is very positive in this, and in fact it is the judiciary which has after 2013, 2014 especially, which has laid down the law in this context. And it is not a complex matter. Yes, it is a known fact that the governments can take over managements under Article 31A sub Article B. But yes, it is also written in that article that it can only be for a limited time period. Now, 35 years, 36 years, by no stretch of imagination can be termed as a reasonable time period. If you have to correct mismanagement, corruption, maladministration, I think 5 years, 6 years, at the max 10 years are sufficient. You can't disbelieve Hindus and believe all non-Hindus and say that Hindus cannot manage their religious institutions and all others, Muslims or Christians or whatever, they can manage their religious institutions.
Compare this with how they treat the Waqf boards and the property of the Waqf boards. Why don't you just compare that?
Absolutely.
Give us a brief rundown on that.
Absolutely. The Muslim community under the Waqf Act also controls all their institutions. Masjids ho jaye, kabrein ho jaye, so many lands. I mean, huge chunks of lands. And the Muslim administrators who, under the Waqf Act, they are the judge, jury, and the executioner under the law. I mean, if they say that this land belongs to Waqf, so the person who might be in the whatever kind of possession of that land, he has to contest his case before someone who is alleging something against him. So the Waqf is totally controlled by Muslims. There is almost zero interference of the government and all religious institutions. Therefore, you see, these Muslim organizations paying 77 lakhs as fee to a Supreme Court lawyer for fighting a case in Supreme Court in which a Hindu girl was converted to Islam और जिसको ISIS के लिए वहां पे भेजा जा रहा था, and they paid 77 lakhs as fee. So where does this money, all this money come from? They use it for proselytization.
It also comes from zakat, and we know also how wealthy that is, and the government can't touch even 1 inch of Waqf land. Whereas in the case of Mata Vaishno Devi shrine, they can give away land, they can take over land, they can do what they like with the land that belongs to the shrine.
Absolutely. I mean, they can spend it anywhere. It's their choice. And even the lands and the properties which belong to Waqf, under law, they cannot be sold. They cannot. They can only be leased out. So the property is also safe. And you have seen so many instances of temples in South India where the lands have been sold, endowments, properties, they have been squandered away. The money has been squandered away. And where do you see Hindu money Hindu shrine fund being spent on iftaris and sehris? Where do you see Muslim money being spent on Deepavali celebrations or Holi celebrations or any Hindu celebrations and on demand from Hindus? You don't see it anywhere. And then that money is used for Muslim cause, for the cause of Islam, for spreading, for proselytizing, for conversions, for fighting cases in favor of anti-nationals, you see. So you don't see it in case of Hindu temples. And the most important thing, that the state under Article 25 is empowered to take over any religious institutions. Lekin the state in India has always chosen only Hindu religious institutions for taking it over. There's not even a single instance where mosques.
Well, if this is our fate, where we are supposedly a majority, I shudder to think what will happen to us the day we start becoming a minority, as happened in Lebanon. And if we don't halt this process, I think they're preparing to take India down the Lebanon route. So thank you, Ankur, for being a warrior who has stood firm against this onslaught. There's so much more that I want to discuss with you, but I think always one thing at a time. So today was the day for this Mata Vaishno Devi Shrine Board matter. I wish you all success and talk to you soon about some of your other historic battles.
Namaste. Thank you so much. Namaste. Thank you so much. Namaste.